Holy shit. He said what?
Okay, so people keep saying that the wedding of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry was some magical fairy tale, but honestly it was nothing like that. It looked more like a giant show set up for the world to watch with all the sparkling carriages, the loud music, and the famous faces everywhere. It was less about love and more about putting on a big dramatic performance.
I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was the worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did. And I travelled the world with him and I did really enjoy working with him. But you know, now I really don't care if I ever see him again because the way he's behaved towards the king and our queen and his brother and his sister-in-law is appalling.
So behind the fancy scenes, Arthur Edwards said, "It was a total mess with guests boiling in heavy outfits, royals pushed to the back, and Hollywood friends of Meghan sitting up front like it was their runway."
She delivered it like an actress delivered it. An opera responded going, wow.
Even the press that helped make the whole thing big got treated badly. Harry kept avoiding the cameras on purpose, making photographers run around like crazy, and Arthur even said he did not get one good picture, and that never happened at any other royal wedding.
All my life, you know, and then Oprah Winfrey had met them once. She was a guest. The Clooneys, the guests. I mean, never met them before, but they were the guests. And, you know, I thought to myself, it's all...
Meghan turned the wedding into more of a brand show than a family moment on TV. It looked magical with music and celebs, but inside it was hot, tiring, and far from romantic, leaving many to wonder if the fairy tale was ever real.
So he was angry, and I felt we were punished for that. In fact, I never got one picture in the paper published from that day.
Unlike other royal weddings, this one stood out for all the wrong reasons. It was not the heat that ruined it, but the way no one cared about the guests. Everything was done for the cameras while off screen. People were worn out, sweaty, and wishing the long day would finally be over.
I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was the worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did.
On TV, it looked like a fairy tale, but for the people inside, it was uncomfortable and unfair. The seating plan pushed senior royals and veterans to the back like they did not matter, while Hollywood stars who barely knew the couple sat right in front because the whole thing was more about camera shots than family respect.
Harry was determined to keep the newspapers away from it as much as possible. Everything was done on long lenses. I mean, I tell you, I had an 800mm lens photographing the guests alive.
Arthur Edwards joked he needed a GPS to find his seat as loyal royals were pushed aside and Hollywood stars took the spotlight, making the whole thing feel more like a flashy award show than a wedding and leaving everyone disappointed.
The photographers they engaged for the job was 5 feet away, you know, it was just hopeless. And then the carriage shot, when they went past me in the carriage, they looked the other way. So for me, it was a disaster.
Everyone thought they'd get a royal feast, but instead they got tiny snacks that looked nice but left them hungry, and it felt more like a photo shoot than a wedding, making people believe it was all about image, not love.
When I think I've done some really lovely royal weddings, I did both King Charles's weddings, I did William's wedding, I did Andrew's wedding, I did Sophie and Edward, you know, I mean, they were lovely occasions, but that today, I couldn't get out of Windsor quick enough, I promise you that.
The worst royal wedding to cover.
Yeah.
Usually, royal weddings give photographers endless golden moments, but this time it was the complete opposite because Harry seemed determined to ruin every shot. He turned away from the lenses, dodged angles, and even stood in ways that blocked clear views, making it feel like a battle instead of a celebration. Arthur Edwards, who had photographed iconic events like Charles and Diana or William and Kate, said it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Instead of a royal prince, Harry came across like a sulky star throwing a tantrum, refusing to play his part. And for the first time in decades of royal coverage, Edwards admitted he walked away from a wedding with nothing usable, no single elegant moment to capture, and that alone showed just how strange and uncomfortable the entire day really was.
I felt so. I felt it wasn't just me, it was the whole of the British press. You know, they were in many ways badly treated. I think it was Harry was angry with us really because some of the things that have been said about Meghan, and quite rightly, some of the things that were said about Meghan during the engagement were pretty harsh.
Harry was not just being difficult that day, he was sending a message, and he made sure everyone felt it because in his mind, the British press had been cruel to Meghan from the very start. So this wedding, which was supposed to be about love and family, became his way of striking back instead of smiling for the cameras like royal royals before him. He glared, looked away, and acted like the photographers were the enemy. Every move was calculated to block the shots and frustrate the press. It was like he wanted them to suffer just as much as he thought Meghan had suffered. But by doing that, he ended up souring the whole event for everyone else too. Guests came hoping for joy, but the mood felt heavy and awkward. The fairy tale image crumbled. The tradition was lost, and instead of unity, people saw division. It was not a royal prince carrying on duty. It was a man full of grudges, showing the world he was done playing by the rules. And the saddest part is that a royal wedding is supposed to be history, something remembered for beauty and hope, but this one was remembered for drama, tension, and a prince who seemed more interested in making a point than making a memory.
I mean, obviously when William was born and Harry was born and George and Charlotte and Louis, we got great pictures outside the hospital. I remember, and William and Catherine especially, they made such an effort to show the whole world their new baby.
From the very start, the mood felt different. The sermon sounded less like a sacred message and more like a Hollywood-style performance with dramatic pauses and big gestures that made people shift in their seats instead of quiet elegance. It came across like a show written for cameras and global viewers, and then the performances slipped in with American flair that clashed with the centuries-old setting. Everything about it screamed, "Look at us rather than honor the crown." Arthur Edwards picked up on it right away. He said the day felt less like a wedding meant to carry tradition forward and more like a staged rebrand, carefully polished for the international press. The old rituals that once reminded everyone of loyalty and unity were brushed aside, called outdated, and replaced with flashy stunts meant to stir up chatter on social media. And while the TV audience might have been dazzled, many guests felt uncomfortable. The symbolism was heavy and even painful because it was clear this was not another moment like Charles and Diana shaping royal history, nor was it like William and Kate blending duty with modern grace. Instead, it was Meghan and Harry sending a bold signal that they were different, that they did not need the family, and that they had no intention of following rules that had defined the monarchy for centuries.
I have to say though, you know, that first year of Meghan, working with her on the road, you know, we went all over the country. She was incredible. I mean, I thought she was a great asset to the family.
Instead of feeling like a royal celebration, the wedding turned into a dramatic breakaway move, a loud statement that almost mocked the very crown funding it guests expected tradition. But what they saw was defiance instead of gentle change. Meghan and Harry tore through customs like they were meaningless, and the idea of royal unity began to crumble. The fairy tale sparkle shown on TV screens was never real. Once the cheers faded, it dissolved into silence because this was not about joining the family, it was about leaving it. They did not quietly step back with grace. They slammed the door behind them and bolted it shut. They brushed off invitations to royal estates, choosing fancy hotels and private security so they could stay in control and keep distance. Family gatherings that once brought everyone together grew fewer and fewer. The warmth of tradition slipped away and the ties of loyalty weakened. Even the grandparents, who only longed for simple moments with Archie and Lily, were left out, forced to watch their grandchildren grow from afar. Instead of joy, they felt like strangers, and every missed gathering showed that Meghan and Harry were building a life not alongside the crown, but completely outside of it. Their independence came at a heavy price, and that price was family.
I knew they'd be seething. I knew the Queen would be seething. I knew that the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles would be seething. It would be so unfair.
For Edwards, the saddest part was seeing a whole new generation of royals lose the chance to share bonds with their cousins and grow up in the traditions that once kept the family close. And what made it sting even more was the way Meghan and Harry spoke so much about love and compassion while keeping their own children away from their blood relatives. Their version of privacy looked less like protection and more like a shield to block the royals out while they continued sharing their story with the world.
The first pictures of Archie that was taken by the Press Association, I remember showing her on my phone, and she said, and that was the first time she saw him, you know, so it was difficult times.
The wedding that should have been a moment of unity slowly turned into the beginning of a painful divide. Each cold glance and subtle snub chipped away at any chance of healing, and what looked glamorous on television only hid the truth that inside the family bonds were breaking for the royals. It was betrayal dressed as independence for the children. It was an invisible loss, a wall being built between them and the cousins they would never grow up alongside. Every moment that passed made reconciliation feel more distant. The sparkle faded quickly, replaced by silence and distance. Then came the Oprah interview, which acted like fuel on an already burning fire instead of coming together to fix old wounds. Meghan and Harry chose to sit before the cameras and unleash accusations. They spoke of racism and cruelty, painting themselves as victims in a story where no one else could answer back. The family had no chance to defend themselves. The narrative belonged only to the couple. Edward saw it as nothing more than a carefully staged staged stunt, something crafted not to heal, but to wound even more. And while the interview made headlines around the world, it also dug the cracks deeper, leaving people wondering if the bridge between Harry, Meghan, and the royals was not just damaged, but gone forever.
And then when the baby was born, when Archie was born, that was another, in my view, a disaster, because I knew we was not going to get a picture of it. Everybody was hoping we would get pictures. Of course, is that the children don't get to see their grandfather. That's really so awful, because they're not getting to meet their cousins and to know their cousins. Such a shame for them.
From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale, but the timing showed the truth, because just as public sympathy began to fade and their shine started to dim, Meghan and Harry dropped a scandal big enough to take over the headlines. The Oprah interview was never about fixing family ties. It was about money, attention, and turning themselves into a brand millions expected honesty, but what they got was a polished performance built to shame the monarchy and crown the couple as victims. The damage ran deep. Families fractured, trust collapsed, and the dignity of centuries dragged into a backyard TV stage. But for Meghan and Harry, the chaos was perfect, because chaos meant headlines and headlines meant power. It was not confession, it was strategy. And that is why their wedding will always be remembered, not as a grand celebration, but as the start of the circus. Behind the sparkle, guests baked in the heat, loyal royals were sidelined, celebrities took the best seats. The food was a joke and photographers were punished at every turn. Tradition was pushed aside so the couple could launch their global brand. And once the show was over, they kept cashing in with interviews, drama, and distance. Every move looked like a power grab. Every choice chipped away at respect. They did not embrace the monarchy. They hijacked it, set it on fire, and used the flames to light their new stage. And the wildest part is that the wedding was not the finale. It was the script for everything that followed. Scandal turned into their currency, and the world could not stop watching. And if you want more juicy takes like this, you know where to go. Hit that subscribe button on Jacob Reports, because trust me, the drama is only getting hotter and you do not want to miss what's coming next.